The observation deck of New Horizons Station stretched like a crystalline cathedral into the void, its transparent walls offering a panoramic view of the planet below. Once, that world had been a Dominion stronghold, its cities dark and lifeless. Under alien rule, now the surface sparkled with the warm glow of human settlements, a testament to their miraculous return from the brink of extinction. Yet as Commander Sarah Chen stood before those same windows, watching the dance of ships in the orbital traffic lanes, she felt no triumph, only a growing dread that gnawed at her soul like a cancer. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering and determination. Sprawling corridors connected towering residential sectors to bustling commercial districts, while administrative towers pierced upward like the spines of some great beast. The architecture spoke of hope, of a species refusing to surrender to despair. But beneath the gleaming surfaces and behind the cheerful propaganda displays, shadows gathered. In the lower levels, where the lighting dimmed and the crowds thinned, whispered conversations carried the weight of sedition. Sarah's reflection stared back at her from the reinforced glacis. Woman aged beyond her years by war and responsibility. Her dark hair, once lustrous, now bore streaks of premature gray. Her eyes, which had once burned with the fire of righteous vengeance, now held the weary uncertainty of someone who had seen too much, lost too much, sacrificed too much. The doors behind her hissed open, and she didn't need to turn to know who had entered. The measured footsteps, the slight hesitation before speaking. General Martinez had always been predictable in his courtesies. Commander, his voice carried the warmth of genuine respect tinged with concern. The council meeting begins in 20 minutes. Sarah finally turned, offering him a tired smile. Martinez was a man built for diplomacy rather than war, his silver hair perfectly groomed, his uniform immaculate, where Sarah bore the scars of a dozen battles. Martinez carried himself with the careful precision of someone who had spent more time in conference rooms and combat zones. "Tell me, General," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper, "what have we become?" Martinez stepped beside her, following her gaze to the planet below. "We've become survivors, Sarah. That's more than anyone expected when the Dominion drove us to the edge of extinction. But look at us now." Sarah gestured toward the depths of the station. "We're tearing ourselves apart. The very unity that brought us home is crumbling in our hands." In the distance, a formation of military vessels conducted training exercises, their weapons systems glowing like deadly fireflies against the starfield. Sarah watched them with growing unease, knowing that half of those ships now answered to commanders who viewed her with suspicion. The Iron Fist faction had grown bolder in recent weeks, led by Admiral Voss and supported by a cadre of hardline military officers. They preached a doctrine of human supremacy that made Sarah's blood run cold. Their argument was seductive in its simplicity. Humanity had been weak once, and weakness had cost them everything. Only through strength, overwhelming, uncompromising strength, could they ensure such humiliation never occurred again. The Iron Fist held another rally yesterday, Martinez said quietly. Admiral Voss spoke to nearly 10,000 people. His message was ... inflammatory. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering Voss as he had been during the war, a brilliant tactician, ruthless when necessary, but always guided by the greater good. Something had changed in him, twisted by the years of struggle and the intoxicating taste of victory. Now he spoke of humanity's manifest destiny to rule the galaxy, of the need to strike first before their enemies could recover. "He's not wrong about one thing," Sarah admitted. "The Dominion will regroup. Other species will look at our return and see a threat. We can't pretend otherwise. But that doesn't mean we have to become the very monsters we fought against," Martinez replied. "The Peacekeepers offer a different path: diplomacy, mutual cooperation, a chance to build something better." The Peacekeeper faction advocated for exactly that kind of future. They proposed summit meetings with former enemies, trade agreements, cultural exchanges. They spoke of a galaxy where humanity could thrive without dominating. It was a beautiful vision, one that appealed to Sarah's deepest hopes. But hope, she had learned, was a luxury that leaders could rarely afford. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission, and Sarah's personal communicator flickered to life. The face that appeared was that of Captain Elena Rodriguez, one of Sarah's most trusted subordinates, but the expression on Elena's features sent ice through Sarah's veins. "Commander, we have a situation. 3 Peacekeeper leaders were found dead in their quarters this morning. Apparent suicides, but ... Elena's voice dropped to a whisper. "The circumstances are suspicious. Admiral Voss is calling for an emergency." Session to discuss the security implications of having Dominion sympathizers in leadership positions. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. The timing was too convenient, the political implications too perfect. Either the Iron Fist was remarkably lucky, or they were playing a far more dangerous game than anyone had realized. Increase security around all faction leaders, Sarah ordered, and Alina ... trust no one completely. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah and Martinez alone with the implications of what they had just heard. In the distance, the planet continued, its slow rotation, unaware that the species fighting for its surface was destroying itself from within. It's starting, Martinez said quietly. The shadow war we all feared. Before Sarah could respond, another transmission cut through the air, this one from Admiral Voss himself. His weathered face appeared on the holographic display, his steel-gray eyes burning with conviction. Commander Chen, he said, without preamble, I trust you've heard about the tragic deaths of our Peacekeeper colleagues. It's clear that foreign agents have infiltrated our highest levels of government. I'm preparing to launch Operation Steel, resolve a preemptive strike against Dominion reconnaissance posts in the Outer Rim. We cannot allow them to see us as weak during this vulnerable time. Sarah felt her world tilting. Admiral, we have no confirmation that the Dominion was involved in with respect. Commander, confirmation is a luxury we can't afford. Voss's image leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Every moment we hesitate is another moment our enemies use to prepare. History will remember us as the generation that secured humanity's future, or as the fools who threw it away for the sake of political correctness. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Sarah staring at empty air. Martinez grabbed her arm, his face pale with realization. He's going to start a war, Martinez breathed. A real war, not just political maneuvering. If he attacks the Dominion outposts, the Peacekeepers will mobilize to stop him, Sarah finished. And then, she didn't need to complete the thought. They both knew what came next. Civil war, with humanity tearing itself apart while their true enemies watched and waited. Sarah's communicator erupted with incoming messages, ship captains demanding orders, station commanders reporting mobilization of forces, civilian leaders begging for protection. The careful balance of power that had held the factions in check was collapsing with terrifying speed. Commander, Lena's voice cut through the chaos, crackling with urgency. Iron Fist forces are moving toward the military district. They're demanding surrender of all Peacekeeper personnel for emergency questioning. General Martinez is on their priority detention list. Sarah looked at Martinez, seeing her own desperation reflected in his eyes. In the space of minutes, their worst fears were becoming reality. The shadow war was stepping into the light, and there would be no hiding from its consequences. Alina, gather our loyal forces at Docking Bay 7, Sarah commanded. Full combat readiness, but do not repeat, do not fire unless fired upon. Sarah, Martinez said quietly, you have to choose. The moderates, the fence-sitters, they're all going to be forced to pick a side. If you don't make a decision now, the decision will be made for you. Through the observation deck's windows, Sarah could see the first signs of the coming storm. Ships were breaking formation, some moving toward the Iron Fist staging areas, others toward Peacekeeper strongholds. The running lights that had once painted pretty patterns across the darkness now looked like the preparation for battle. Her personal communicator chimed with an encrypted message from someone she hadn't heard from in months. Marcus Webb, her former second-in-command during the liberation campaigns, the man she had trusted with her life countless times, whose tactical brilliance had saved them all on more occasions than she could count. Sarah, Marcus's recorded voice was tight with strain. I know what you're thinking, and you're wrong. The Peacekeepers didn't kill those leaders, we did. The Iron Fist, I mean. Admiral Voss ordered it, said it was necessary to prevent a negotiated surrender to the Dominion. I tried to stop it, but, God forgive me, I was part of it. I'm sending you the evidence now. Use it how you see fit. But know that there are those of us within the Iron Fist who never wanted this. We just wanted humanity to be strong enough to survive. We never wanted to become murderers. The data packet that followed contained surveillance footage, communication logs, financial records, refutable proof that the Iron Fist had orchestrated the assassinations to justify their military buildup. Sarah stared at the evidence, feeling something inside her chest break apart like a brittle star collapsing in on itself. Marcus, she whispered to the empty air, what have you done? An explosion rocked the station, throwing both officers against the reinforced windows. Emergency. Klaxons began wailing as the lights flickered to emergency power. Through the chaos, Sarah saw something that made her heart stop. A wing of Iron Fist fighters was peeling away from what remained of the diplomatic quarter, their weapons still glowing from recent discharge. Commander, Lena's voice screamed through the communicator. The Iron Fist just bombed the Peacekeeper headquarters. They're claiming it was a preemptive strike against a planned terrorist attack. Admiral Voss is declaring martial law. Sarah looked at Martinez, seeing her own shock reflected in his eyes. In the span of minutes, everything had changed. The careful balance of power, the hope for reconciliation, the dream of unity, all of it swept away by violence and lies. Sir, Elena continued, Peacekeeper forces are mobilizing for retaliation. They're demanding Voss's immediate arrest. What are your orders? What were her orders? Sarah stared out at the planet below, at the human settlements that glowed like beacons of hope against the darkness. What was she supposed to tell them now? That their liberators had become their own worst enemies. Alina, Sarah said, her voice cutting through the chaos with sudden clarity. Broadcast Marcus Webb's evidence on all channels. Let everyone see what really happened here. Sarah, no. Martinez grabbed her arm. If you release that evidence, you'll be choosing the Peacekeepers. The Iron Fist will brand you a traitor, and this civil war will have your name written all over it. Sarah pulled free, her decision crystallizing like ice in her veins. Then so be it. I won't let Voss drag humanity into darkness based on lies and murder. She activated her command authority, overriding the station's communication systems. Across New Horizon Station, on every screen and speaker, Marcus Webb's evidence began to play. The surveillance footage of Iron Fist operatives entering the Peacekeeper leaders' quarters, the recorded conversations planning the assassinations, the financial records showing payments to Black Ops personnel. The reaction was immediate and devastating. Iron Fist loyalists screamed about foreign manipulation and doctored evidence. Peacekeeper forces, their rage now fully justified, began mobilizing for war, and caught between them, thousands of ordinary human soldiers, civilians, families watched their unity shatter in real time. Admiral Voss's face appeared on every screen moments later, his expression twisted with fury and something that might have been grief. Commander Chen, he said, his voice carrying the weight of finality. You have just committed the gravest act of treason in human history. By siding with those who would surrender our future to our enemies, you have forfeited any right to lead. I hereby relieve you of command and order your immediate arrest. Sarah almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Voss had orchestrated murder and was preparing to launch an unprovoked war, yet she was the traitor. But then she saw the ships moving. Beyond the station's windows, Iron Fist vessels breaking away from the main formation, their weapons powering up as they moved toward Peacekeeper positions. All units, this is Commander Chen, she broadcast on the general frequency. I am assuming emergency command authority under Article 7 of the Colonial Defense Charter. All forces are to stand down immediately and return to neutral positions. This is not a request, it is a direct order from your lawful commander. For a moment, Sarah thought it might work. Several ships began to slow, their commanders uncertain about which authority to follow. But then Admiral Voss's voice cut through the confusion. All loyal forces, this is Admiral Voss. Commander Chen has been compromised by enemy agents. Ignore her orders and proceed with Operation Steel Resolved, for the future of humanity. The die was cast. Sarah watched in horror as the first shots were fired not at distant Dominion outposts, but between human ships in the space around New Horizon Station. Brilliant flashes of weapons fire painted the darkness as brother turned against brother, as the unity that had brought them home from the brink of extinction finally shattered completely. Alina, Sarah said, her voice barely audible above the sound of her breaking heart, take us to the bridge. If this is how humanity chooses to end its story, then at least we'll face it with our eyes open. The battle that followed was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. There was no clear front line, no obvious enemy. Ships that had fought side by side against the Dominion now targeted each other with the same deadly efficiency they had once reserved for their true foes. The space around New Horizon Station became a chaotic whirlwind of fire and metal, where former comrades died screaming each other's names. Sarah found herself commanding a mixed force of ships whose crews had chosen to follow her rather than the warring factions. They fought a desperate holding action, trying to protect civilian transports and maintain some semblance of order while the Iron Fist and Peacekeeper forces tore each other apart around them. Commander Alina reported from the tactical station. We're receiving a transmission from the Outer Rim monitoring posts. Long-range sensors are detecting Dominion fleet movements toward our position. Multiple battle groups estimated arrival in 6 hours. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Of course, the Dominion would take advantage of humanity's civil war. They had probably been waiting for exactly this opportunity, watching and preparing, while humanity destroyed itself from within. Broadcast this to all forces, Sarah ordered. All channels, maximum priority. She activated the general communication system, knowing that this might be the last time anyone listened to her words. This is Commander Sarah Chen to all human forces in the New Horizons system. I don't care which faction you support or what political beliefs drive you. In 6 hours, the Dominion fleet will arrive to finish what we've started here today. They're going to find us weakened, divided, and easy prey. If we continue this civil war, we won't just be destroying each other, we'll be handing our enemies the victory they could never have achieved on their own. She paused, watching the tactical display as the fighting continued unabated around the station. Some ships were beginning to disengage, their commanders perhaps finally grasping the larger threat, but too many others remained locked in combat. I know you all think you're fighting for humanity's future, Sarah continued, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 regrets. But look around you. Look at what we've become. The Dominion doesn't need to defeat us, we're doing their job. For them. Admiral Voss's voice cut across her transmission, filled with contempt. More lies from a proven traitor. The Dominion threat is exactly why we must eliminate the weakness within our own ranks. There can be no compromise with those who would surrender our strength. General Martinez, broadcasting from his flagship, tried one final time to bridge the gap. Admiral Commander, please. Can't you see that this is exactly what our enemies wanted? We're fulfilling their greatest hope that humanity would destroy itself. But it was too late. The battle raged on, and Sarah watched with growing despair as more ships fell, their crews dying for causes that seemed increasingly meaningless. In the face of approaching extinction, the space around New Horizons Station became a graveyard of human ambition, littered with the wreckage of the fleet that was supposed to secure their future. When the Dominion forces finally arrived, they found exactly what they had hoped for: a broken human fleet, its survivors too exhausted and bloodied to offer meaningful resistance. The great liberation that had brought humanity back from the edge of annihilation ended not with triumph, but with the bitter taste of self-inflicted defeat. Sarah's final log entry recorded as her ship's life support systems failed and the Dominion, closed in for the kill, would become humanity's epitaph. We reached for the stars and found them within our grasp, but we couldn't reach past our own fears, our own hatreds, our own stubborn refusal to see that our greatest enemy was never the Dominion, it was ourselves. The fractured stars bear witness to our failure, and history will remember us not as the species that conquered the galaxy, but as the one that conquered itself to death. The last transmission from New Horizons Station was a simple surrender offer from Admiral Voss, his voice hollow with a recognition of what his ambitions had cost them all. But the Dominion had learned from their previous encounters with humanity. This time, they would take no chances with a species that had already proven its resilience once. The stars that had once seemed so bright with promise now burned cold and distant, indifferent to the civilization that had reached so far only to fall so completely. And in the silence that followed, the galaxy itself seemed to mourn for what humanity might have been, if only they had remembered that their greatest strength had always been their ability to stand together. The war for humanity's soul was over, and humanity had lost.